Sanbonani. Dumela Koko, Dumela Koko, Dumela Maholo. Um, Hello, friends, acquaintances, folks who are joining the podcast for the first time. You are locating us here at Sound on Siren. I am the Siren here. My name is Imbali Blooming, and I'm really grounded to be here today. I'm really grounded in being here today. Even though I'm recording this later than normal, I do feel grounded in this right now, today, right here, to come and talk and share about some of the things that I've been learning and uncovering. Maybe really just like spaces and places and platforms and opportunities for self-expression that I am fully partaking in and fully taking up that space to express, to self-express. That feels like what 2024 is. I keep saying 2024 is going to be more me into me, more me involved in me, and truly from the grace of the reflection of the people that are around me that really hold the mirror to society, to life, to all the myriads and aspects of life and living, and also back to me as post-it notes, of things that I've once said, of ways that I've once loved. I actually wrote, so I'm doing this thing on Threads, and on Threads I am going to be writing, because I noticed that this year is a leap year, I'm going to be writing 366 notes. What the notes are going to be might be intentions, there might be reminders, there might just be things that I'm thinking about. But again, these avenues of self-expression that I'm really taking up and taking in. I want to archive my life, seeing what is happening in the Congo, what's happening in Palestine, seeing what's happening in Sudan, what's been happening. And I think that the idea of being unalived and of stories, legacies, lineages, being lost, stolen, violently stopped, abruptly stopped, makes me really consider even more heavily, and I've been considering over the past few years, but even more heavily considering archiving, considering doing this historical analysis of my family and allowing that to occupy, whether it's a documentary, whether it's an actual book, whether it's just pieces and stories and piecing alongs of things in time and in space, and wanting to really fully presence myself in expression, in self-expression. So number 7 of 366 is this: I'll puff and pass on the lessons of my struggle. I'll puff and pass on the love. I'll puff and pass on the gentle pat to ease a body. I'll puff and pass on the hope. I'll puff and pass on the solidarity. I'll puff and pass on the fists in the air. I will puff and pass on the rioting of a nation. I will puff and pass on all petitions. I will puff and pass on radicalized thought and action. I will puff and pass on the dream of a brighter future. I will puff and pass on from the river to the sea. I will puff and pass on until we are all free. And so that's what this feels like. That's what my podcast feels like. It's like a puff and pass on, puffing on life and passing on whatever it delivers to me, whatever is called to me to share and to speak into. So in 2023, as you will realize with the podcast, I took a break. I took a break from the podcast. At first, it felt like a break to recalibrate. Then it felt like a long list of excuses and reasons why I shouldn't be coming back. Then it felt like it wasn't too good. It wasn't going to be good enough. And it is what it is right now that I'm here. I want to commit this to myself. I want to devote this to myself. This vessel of expression. I want to devote this vessel of expression to myself. You know, these little stories that I'm telling, these little ways. This year, I want to get out of my own way. It always seems so easy, makes sense. Like, get out of your own way. It's almost this visualization that I have of like getting out my own way, you know, of like my ego standing in front of me, and then me, an egoless entity, standing behind it. And then the ego walks away. Or I walk around it, depending on the stubbornness of said ego. Or the stubbornness of said thing that is holding. So for me, it was an overconsumption of content. And it was an overconsumption of not just any content, but an overconsumption of content in a way that I was internalizing and comparing. Does that make sense? Like, that I was internalizing and comparing, you know, consuming other people's content who I, you know, obviously for research and such, who I would want to be like, who I admire, whose style that I really enjoy. And so consuming their content, and then instead of taking that consumption of the content, the learnings, you know, the figuring outs, and applying it to my own thing, I just stopped. I said, I'm not going to do it like that. I'm not going to do it like, it's not going to be that crisp, that bright, that this again. It's not going to be right. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be right. It's not going to be perfect. Yeah, fine. You know, some episodes might be shorter than other episodes. Some episodes might not be as jam-packed, you know, with like information, value, or things or steps. But I do hope that my intention and the depth of my intention, I do hope that that intention stays rife and thick and robust. That I can continue to hold true to that intention of expressing myself and of self-expression and sharing really all of the things that I've learned that I find interesting as well. I remember my first podcast that I did, I did interviews on it. I had a couple of co-hosts on it as well, and we spoke about all sorts of random things. And you know, over time I stopped looking and checking for if anybody was looking and listening to it or whatever the case is. And a lot of people would come back to us and say like, oh my goodness, your podcast has been getting me through this time, your podcast has gotten me through this time and this time. And I'm like, damn, like, yeah, once I just started doing it and got beyond the stickiness of doing it, and I showed up to do it, it was feeding people. It was feeding them in whichever way that they needed to be fed. And I'm back to be fed. Because it's the best way that I process my information is through talking, and now having conversations with my kuku, having this avenue of storytelling and archiving story. So overconsumption, and then the internalization of like, it's not valuable, it's not going to work, it's not valuable, it's not going to work. So that was one of the things that I was doing last year. Overconsumption. And then, you know, the very typical, happens to everybody, happens to the most of us, best of us, is the overcomparison. The overcomparison, and not even overcomparison of like apples and apples, but overcomparison of apples and oranges. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm comparing myself, the quality of my ability to do video and editing and all of this other stuff, which I haven't really done off of like the apps, for example, or like my phone. And now I'm doing it on my laptop, on different apps. Yes, fine, that skill has been bolstered, but like the person that I'm comparing myself to has been doing video footage for 10 plus years. This was at one point their full-time gig. You know what I'm saying? So, like, comparing apples and oranges. And obviously, it's good to aspire, right? To look up, right? But it's also important to look around, right? And I'm still figuring it out. I'm still figuring it out as usual, as usual. Sometimes the wisdom isn't the solution. Sometimes the wisdom is just saying, you're figuring it out, and you're here and you're figuring it out, and you're going to be open, and you're going to bare your soul, and you're going to share. So that's what I was doing in 2023. What I'd like to do in 2024. I want to connect with the practice of how I will understand myself. I want to be, who I want to be, how I want to be in 2024 is to connect with the fact that I am outstanding when I stand in my progress. I'm outstanding when I stand in my progress. That's what I want to infuse 2024 with. And stand more in me, not hold back. Not hold back. In 2024, I don't want to hold back. I would like to pause a little bit more, pause and not just jump hastily to say yes, not just jump on every opportunity to say yes, not jump on every opportunity that knocks on my door, right? And to really find the space to tell myself that it's okay to assess this opportunity. Yes, at one point, there were no opportunities at all, and that was frightening. And now we've gotten to a point where there are opportunities, and we also can still choose where we want to go and just sleep on it. Even if we say yes, even if you go with it, even if at the end of the day you're going to jump into that opportunity, but to take a beat. Let it marinate, let it sit, sift through it, and then decide if it's what I want to do. So 2024, slow year for me. I really am pivoting in 2024. After 2023, there's a lot of personal things that I'm pivoting in 2024. And one of those is, just kind of playing around with what I keep to myself and what I share. Playing around with what I keep to myself and what I share. And I'm not quite sure what that dynamic looks like. There's really nothing to state overtly of like, this is what I'm going to share. This is what I'm going to stop sharing. But there's this push and pull to change it up, to switch it up, to move it around, to move it about. So 2024, I'm looking forward to sitting here on this couch in my bedroom and showing up week after week after week after week after week and seeing where I can go. Because if I can dedicate my 30s to my creative career and really be doing it, come on, babe. I could dedicate 2024 to really honing this podcast into what I want it to be. Because I have such beautiful dreams for it. I have such beautiful dreams for it, even listening to it myself and looking back at it. There's such a sweetness in there. There's such a sweetness. So, to reflect on myself. An avenue to reflect on myself, on the things that I'm experiencing, on the ways that I'm growing and changing and morphing and moving, and on a way for you to reflect on yourself as you join me on this podcast journey. So let's hold true to our intentions. Let's realign our morality, our ethics, guys. really appreciate you. And I hope there's something that you've taken away from this episode, whatever it might be. Whatever it might be, that it has fed you in some way. Thank you for joining me in my conversations with my grandmother about my life. So before I go, the last thing that I will touch on for this episode is my 5-year relationship hiatus. I think a few episodes ago, I would have shared or spoken about my 5-year relationship hiatus, taking a break from being involved in relationships with people, with folks, and this is romantic partnered relationships with folks. Yeah, because I just needed a break. I just needed an opportunity to like realign myself. And this December, this one that just passed, this December, really, the theme of that December was, I am ready for love. That, I said, what? My mind said, I'm ready for love. I said, wait a minute. It's been a number of years now. We're not at 5. And my body is like, the vibes are like, I'm ready for love. And at first I was like, whatever, it's just cuffing season, you know what I'm saying? It's cold. It's cold. My body is falling prey to the weather, to the social convention, to the norm of cuffing season, and I was like, wait a minute, let me actually think, let me actually consider where I am and how I feel. And I know I had made that intention, that commitment to myself, and sometimes I can be very stringent on myself when I make these intentions and commitments, and to hold them as like absolute protocol, you know what I'm saying, for myself. And when this kind of feeling, when this kind of presencing of a readiness for love, or a readiness to even explore, even a curiosity about where I really am, how it's really sitting in my body, to be in this relationship hiatus, I've been uncovering quite a bit. I've been uncovering some more about loneliness. I've been uncovering also the ways in which I do yearn for a care that is interwoven with a loving, partnered intimacy. And I'm not quite sure what that really spells for me or what that means for me at this point, but all I know is that it's there, and I'm open to exploring it. Let's see what happens. It could just all be, feelings, movements, temporary, fleeting situation. And then I could be, back into the hiatus, or it could be a slow burn of something. But stay tuned. And you'll find out. So, yeah, guys, the empire is falling. It is trying its damnedest to drag us down with it. But let us not be dragged down. Let us not be dragged down by its collapse. Let us not be dragged down. Thank you for joining me on this episode 19 of the Sound on Siren podcast. Probably watching us on YouTube or listening to us on the podcast streaming platforms. Please leave us a review, leave us a rating, leave me a comment as well. What is something that you are wanting to leave in 2023, and what is something that you are wanting to see through in 2024, for yourself, for others, for the community, for the globe, for humanity. I really, really appreciate you inviting me into your mind, into your ear space, into your living room, your car, your bus ride, your work break, your lunch break, your laundry companion. Maybe I'm accompanying you on a walk. Maybe I'm keeping you company and keeping some of your thoughts, other thoughts at bay, whatever it might be. Thank you very much for allowing me to temporarily take up that space. I do really, 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 really appreciate that. Y'all are making my what feels like almost like a weird dream, a weird desire happen, is to really, for a moment in time, exist in, yeah, in people's minds and people's lives, to support, to feed, as I said, the spirit, to invigorate the soul. Coco, we'll close the conversation for today. Until next week.